The day I buried my husband Daniel, I thought I had already lived through the worst heartbreak life could offer. I was wrong. 3 years later, during my 68th birthday dinner, I slipped my phone into the pocket of my cardigan without realizing it had started recording. Minutes later, as I stepped into the kitchen, my daughter-in-law, Emily, leaned close to someone and whispered, "She'll never know." I didn't hear those words until that night. When I pressed play on that accidental recording, I uncovered a secret that nearly cost me my family, my peace, and everything my husband and I had spent a lifetime building. If this story touches your heart, I'd love for you to stay with me until the very end. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video if you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart. Subscribe if you enjoy heartfelt family stories like mine. And I'd truly love to hear from you in the comments. What would you have done if you had heard those 4 chilling words? Also, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Reading your messages always reminds me that none of us walks through life's storms alone. People often tell you that grief gets easier with time. I don't know who started that saying, but I don't believe it. What really happens is that grief changes shape. It stops shouting and starts whispering. It follows you into the grocery store when you reach for your husband's favorite cereal. It sits beside you during church on Sunday mornings. It waits in the empty chair across the dinner table every single night. 3 years had passed since Daniel died, yet I still caught myself reaching for my phone whenever something funny happened, ready to call him, before remembering there would never be another answer. Daniel and I had been married for 44 years. 44 ordinary, beautiful years. We weren't wealthy. We never owned a vacation home or traveled around the world. Daniel worked as an electrician. I spent 35 years teaching 2nd grade at a public elementary school outside Columbus, Ohio. We built a simple life. A mortgage we paid off. A little brick house with white shutters. A backyard Daniel adored. A retirement we earned 1 paycheck at a time. Most importantly, we raised 1 son. Ryan. If you asked me 20 years ago what I was proudest of, I would have said raising Ryan into a good man. He was thoughtful, responsible, never the loudest person in the room. When Daniel became sick, Ryan drove 2 hours every weekend just to mow the lawn because his father insisted he could still do it himself. He knew Daniel couldn't, but he never embarrassed him. That kindness reminded me so much of his father. After Daniel passed away, Ryan worried constantly about me living alone. "Mom," he said one Sunday afternoon, "you don't have to spend every weekend by yourself anymore." "I'm doing just fine." "I know you say that. I mean it." "I know." He smiled. "But I'd still sleep better if you came over more often." I finally agreed. Before long, Sunday dinners became a tradition. Every week, I drove 25 minutes to Ryan's house. Emily always greeted me before I even reached the porch. Linda. She would wrap me in a hug that felt warm and genuine. "Come in. Dinner's almost ready." If Ryan was Daniel's quiet strength, Emily was energy itself. She remembered birthdays. She remembered favorite recipes. She somehow knew exactly how everyone liked their coffee. Mine always had 1 packet of sweetener and just enough cream to turn it light tan. I never had to ask. She simply remembered. Little things like that matter when you're older. They make you feel seen. Sometimes she'd hand me a container before I left. "I made extra chicken soup." Or, "I baked blueberry muffins for you." Or, "Don't forget your favorite peach preserves." I honestly believed she cared about me. Maybe that's why what happened later hurt so much. Trust isn't built through grand gestures. It's built through hundreds of tiny kindnesses. Emily seemed to understand that perfectly. My grandchildren made those Sundays even sweeter. Sophie had just turned 11. She loved reading mysteries. Every week, she'd run to show me whatever library book she'd checked out. Grandma, don't tell me the ending if you've already read this one. I promise. She never believed me. Ethan was 8. His entire life revolved around dinosaurs and baseball. He asked at least 50 questions every visit. Grandma, did dinosaurs sneeze? I honestly don't know. Could a T-Rex beat a gorilla? I don't think they'd ever meet. What if they did? Ryan always laughed. Mom, you're the only person patient enough to answer him. I didn't mind. Children asking questions means they're still curious about the world. Adults should do it more often. Looking back now, there were moments that should have made me pause. Not alarming moments, just odd ones. One afternoon, Emily helped me carry groceries into my house. She glanced toward my small office. Is that where you keep all your paperwork? I laughed. Pretty much. I really should organize mine someday. She sounded casual. I thought nothing of it. Another time, she noticed a framed photograph sitting on my bookshelf. Daniel stood beside our first little house, smiling proudly with a toolbox in one hand. Emily picked it up. He always handled everything, didn't he? He certainly tried. What happened after he passed? What do you mean? Like, insurance papers, bank accounts, all that. It wasn't fun. I bet. She nodded sympathetically. I don't even know where Ryan keeps half our documents. Again, nothing seemed strange. Families talk about these things, or so I believed. Several months later, she offered to help me sort old files. You've got so many folders. I've collected 68 years of paperwork, she laughed. I could organize this in one afternoon. I wouldn't make you do that. I don't mind. We spent nearly 3 hours sorting old utility bills, tax returns, and insurance statements. She worked carefully, patiently. At one point, she asked, "Which drawer has your important documents?" I pointed toward the locked filing cabinet. That one. She smiled. Smart. I never wondered why she asked. Today I wish I had. Ryan always encouraged me to let Emily help. Mom, don't do everything yourself. I've managed this long. I know. But Emily enjoys helping. He wasn't wrong. She always volunteered first. Cleaning, cooking, driving me to doctor's appointments, picking up prescriptions, helping decorate for Christmas, helping plant flowers every spring. She slowly became the daughter I never had. I trusted her enough to give her a spare house key. It'll only be for emergencies, I said. I hope I never need it. You probably won't. She squeezed my hand. But thank you. I remember feeling relieved. Someone else could check on the house if I became sick. Someone else could bring in the mail if I traveled. It seemed practical. Nothing more. Sometimes Margaret Collins, my next-door neighbor for over 30 years, teased me. You've got quite the daughter-in-law. I know. She spoils you. I won't complain. Margaret smiled. You got lucky. I really did. At least, that's what I believed. The birthday dinner arrived on a warm Saturday evening in early September. Emily insisted on cooking everything herself. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade apple pie, Daniel's favorite meal. She even remembered that detail. When I walked through the front door, Sophie threw her arms around me. Happy birthday, Grandma! Ethan handed me a crooked birthday card he'd made himself. Inside, he'd drawn a dinosaur wearing glasses. The caption read, "You're older than T-Rex, but cooler." I laughed so hard I cried. Ryan shook his head. I don't know where he comes up with this stuff. Dinner felt perfect. The grandchildren laughed. Ryan poured sweet tea. Emily floated around the kitchen, making sure everyone's plate stayed full. If someone had paused time right there and asked me whether I trusted every person sitting around that table, I wouldn't have hesitated. With every part of my heart, I would have answered yes. And that is exactly why I never noticed the tiny cracks already spreading beneath the surface. I walked into that birthday believing I was surrounded by the people who loved me most. I walked out carrying something I didn't even know existed: a phone, an accidental recording, and the beginning of the greatest betrayal of my life. I didn't realize my phone had been recording until almost 10 that night. After I got home, I changed into my pajamas, washed the birthday makeup from my face, and carried my gifts into the living room. The house felt quiet again. Too quiet. That was always the hardest part about visiting Ryan's family. Their home was full of laughter. Mine echoed. I plugged my phone into the charger because the battery had nearly died during dinner. As I waited for it to power on, I smiled at the photos I'd taken that evening. One of Sophie hugging me. Another of Ethan proudly holding the birthday card he'd made. Ryan laughing while Emily carried my birthday cake into the dining room. For a moment, I felt grateful. Maybe life hadn't turned out exactly the way I'd imagined after Daniel died. But I still had a family. That thought comforted me. Then I noticed something strange. A new file sat in my recordings folder. Length 23 minutes, 41 seconds. I frowned. I don't remember recording anything. I almost deleted it. Then curiosity stopped me. Maybe I'd accidentally recorded the grandchildren singing happy birthday. I'd done things like that before. I tapped play. At first, the recording sounded exactly as I expected. Plates clinking, silverware scraping, children laughing somewhere in the background. Emily saying, "Does anyone want more mashed potatoes?" Ryan answered, "I'll take another spoonful." Someone laughed. Probably me. I smiled without realizing it. Listening almost felt like reliving the evening. Then the recording shifted. I heard footsteps, fabric brushing against the phone's microphone. That must have been me walking into the kitchen with my phone still inside my cardigan pocket. The sound became muffled. Cabinets opened, water ran from the faucet. I remembered rinsing serving dishes before Emily insisted I leave them alone. "Linda, you're the birthday girl. I can still help." "No." She laughed. "Go sit down." I'd walked away. The phone had stayed in my pocket, recording everything. I almost stopped listening. Instead, I turned the volume up. Several seconds passed. Then I heard Sophie's voice somewhere far away. "Grandma, come see my drawing." I smiled again. The recording captured little moments I'd never noticed, until everything became quiet. Not silent. Different, like people had stepped into another room. Emily's voice came first, soft, almost whispering. "She'll never know." Every hair on my arm stood up. I froze. The smile disappeared from my face. Had I heard that correctly, I backed the recording up 10 seconds. Pressed play again. There it was, clearer this time. "She'll never know." There wasn't any laughter afterward, only a man's voice. Low, calm, older than Ryan. "You need to be careful." I frowned. That wasn't Ryan. It wasn't Ethan. It wasn't anyone I recognized. Emily answered quietly. "I know." The man spoke again. "After she signs—" The next few words disappeared beneath the sound of a cabinet door closing. My heart started beating faster. Signs when I leaned closer to the phone. Emily spoke again. "Ryan doesn't need every detail." My stomach tightened. "Ryan, why wouldn't my own son need every detail?" The man replied. "It's safer this way." "Safer for who?" The recording crackled. Someone walked past. Children laughed again. The conversation became impossible to hear for several seconds. I held my breath. Then Emily whispered one more sentence. "I just need a little more time." More footsteps. Someone called from the dining room. "Emily, I'm coming." Her voice sounded perfectly normal again. The mysterious man never spoke another word. The rest of the recording returned to ordinary family sounds. The birthday candles, everyone singing, my own voice thanking them. Nothing else. I stared at the screen. The recording had ended. For several seconds, I simply sat there. No movement, no thoughts. Finally, I whispered, "What was that?" I immediately played it again. This time, I wrote the phrases on a notepad. "She'll never know. Be careful. After she signs. Ryan doesn't need every detail. It's safer this way. I just need a little more time." Reading those words together made them sound even worse. But maybe I was misunderstanding. Context changes everything. Daniel used to remind me of that. Never judge one sentence without hearing the whole conversation. Perhaps Emily was helping someone else. Maybe she was planning a surprise. Maybe she wasn't me. Maybe. I clung to those maybes because the alternative terrified me. I called Ryan. Then I stopped before pressing the button. What exactly would I ask? Did your wife secretly whisper something strange during my birthday dinner? He'd think grief had finally caught up with me. Or worse, he'd tell Emily. If there was nothing wrong, I'd embarrass everyone. If there was something wrong, they'd know I'd heard. No, not yet. I replayed the recording a third time, then a fourth. Each time, I heard something different. A chair moving, ice clinking in a glass, a child running through the room. The mystery voice. His tone bothered me more than his words. He sounded comfortable, like he and Emily had spoken many times before. Not strangers, partners. I walked into my kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been this unsettled. Probably the day Daniel's doctor told us the treatments had stopped working. I hated this feeling. The feeling that life had quietly changed without asking my permission. I wandered through the dark house. Every room reminded me of Daniel, his recliner, his gardening gloves hanging inside the garage, his old coffee mug that I still couldn't throw away. "If you were here," I whispered aloud, "you'd know what to do." Daniel had remarkable instincts. Mine were usually buried beneath optimism. I always looked for the best in people. Sometimes that was a gift. Sometimes it was a weakness. Around midnight, I convinced myself to stop listening. I brushed my teeth, turned off the lights, climbed into bed. Sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Emily's whisper again. "She'll never know." Who was she? Why did they sound so careful? Why hide something from Ryan? Why mention signing papers? The questions multiplied until my head ached. Around 2 a.m, I got out of bed. I walked back to the living room, picked up my phone, and listened one more time. This time, I noticed something new, very faintly, almost buried beneath the children's laughter. I heard what sounded like paper sliding across a table. Then the mystery man's voice. "So keep these," Emily answered. "I will. Paper, signing, keeping documents. Maybe they were discussing insurance, maybe taxes, maybe anything. Or maybe..." Something inside me whispered that this wasn't innocent. I hated that thought. I wanted to erase it. Instead, I saved the recording to my computer. Then I copied it onto a small flash drive. I wasn't even sure why. Instinct, perhaps. Before dawn finally broke, I looked out my living room window as the first sunlight touched Daniel's rose bushes. I realized something I never imagined I would think about my own family. For the first time in 3 years. I wasn't afraid of living alone. I was afraid of the people I trusted most. The next morning, I made myself a promise. I would not accuse anyone. Not Ryan, not Emily, not even the mysterious man whose voice haunted my thoughts. I needed facts before I allowed fear to become truth. Daniel used to say, "The first story your mind tells you isn't always the right one." I repeated those words while making coffee. Still, something inside me had changed. The trust that once came naturally now felt fragile. Every memory from the past year suddenly looked different. It was as if someone had turned on a light in a room I'd lived in for years without noticing the cracks in the walls. I picked up an old photo album while drinking my coffee. Inside were pictures from last Thanksgiving, Christmas, Sophie's piano recital, Ethan's baseball game. Emily smiled in every photograph. A warm smile, a sincere smile, or at least I had always believed it was sincere. I closed the album. "No," I whispered to myself. "Don't let one recording rewrite your entire life." But the memories kept coming anyway. One afternoon last winter, Emily had helped me clean my home office. At the time, I thought she was simply being thoughtful. Now, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. She had stood beside my filing cabinet. "Linda?" she had asked casually, "Do you ever worry about losing important papers?" I laughed. "I've been keeping files for 40 years. "So, everything important is in here?" I nodded. "Mostly." She smiled. Daniel was always organized. He certainly was. I wish Ryan were like that. Nothing about the conversation had seemed unusual then. Now it echoed in my mind. I walked into my office. The filing cabinet stood exactly where it always had. Gray metal. 4 drawers. Locked. I unlocked it. Everything looked normal. Insurance papers, property taxes, bank statements, Daniel's military records, my estate planning folder. Nothing appeared missing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone else had been inside these drawers. I told myself I was imagining things. Then I noticed something odd. A folder labeled medical records was sitting in front of retirement accounts. I never kept them that way, I was certain. Daniel used to tease me about my filing system. Only you could organize documents alphabetically and by color. He wasn't wrong. I always put financial records together. Medical files stayed in a separate section. Someone had switched them. Maybe it had been me. Maybe not. I slowly searched every drawer. Nothing appeared stolen, yet several folders seemed slightly out of place. Tiny differences. The kind only the person who organized them would notice. I closed the cabinet. My pulse had quickened. Again, I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe Emily accidentally moved something? That explanation made sense, didn't it? Later that afternoon, I searched my bedroom closet for an old sweater. While reaching toward the top shelf, I noticed my jewelry box. It looked ordinary. Still, something made me open it. Every necklace remained inside. My wedding ring rested where I always kept it. The pearl earrings Daniel bought for our 25th anniversary sat untouched. Then I realized one velvet divider had been turned sideways. A meaningless detail to anyone else, but I always placed it flat. Always. I stared at it for several seconds. How many little things had I ignored? I wasn't finding missing valuables. I was finding disturbances. Subtle ones, quiet ones, the kind that make you question your own memory. By lunchtime, I felt exhausted. Not physically, mentally. Every object inside my house seemed capable of asking another question. I decided to call Margaret Collins. She answered on the second ring. "Morning, Linda. Do you have a few minutes? For you always. I think I just need someone to talk to. You sound tired. I didn't sleep much. Come over. I don't want to bother you." "Nonsense. I'll put the kettle on." Margaret had lived next door for 32 years. She knew Daniel almost as well as I did. After his death, she checked on me nearly every week. If anyone could calm my racing thoughts, it was Margaret, but halfway to her house, I changed my mind. No, not yet. If I told Margaret about the recording, the secret would no longer belong to me. Once words leave your mouth, they never truly come back. I turned my car around. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad. Across the top, I wrote one sentence: facts. Underneath, I made 2 columns: facts, questions. Under facts, I wrote, Emily whispered, "She'll never know." A man answered. Ryan wasn't part of the conversation. Someone mentioned signing papers. Someone said Ryan didn't need every detail. Those were facts. Under questions, I filled nearly an entire page. Who was the man? Who was she? What papers? Why keep Ryan uninformed? Was the conversation about me? Was I imagining connections that didn't exist? Looking at the list actually helped. Questions were not answers. I needed to remember that. Around 3 o'clock, Ryan called. "Hey, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart. Just checking in." "I'm fine." "You sound tired." "I didn't sleep well." "You overdid it yesterday?" "I suppose." He chuckled. "Emily packed leftovers for you." "She did." "Did you like the pie?" "It was delicious." There was genuine affection in his voice. Nothing forced, nothing suspicious. I suddenly felt guilty. Could I really be sitting here wondering if my own son was involved in something dishonest? Ryan continued talking about work. A new construction project. Long hours. Budget meetings. Normal life. Before hanging up, he said, "Emily wanted me to remind you that she's free Thursday if you need help around the house." My heart skipped. Help around the house. Those simple words now carried weight. "No, thank you." "You sure?" "I think I'll manage." "If you change your mind, let us know." "I will." After the call ended, I realized something. That was the first time in years I had turned down Emily's offer to help, and it hadn't even been difficult. Late that evening, I walked back into my office one more time. The sunlight coming through the window landed directly on the filing cabinet. I unlocked it again. This time, I examined the lock itself. Tiny scratches surrounded the keyhole. Very faint. Had they always been there? Or had someone struggled with the key? I honestly couldn't remember. The uncertainty frustrated me more than any answer could have. I took several photographs with my phone. Then I photographed every drawer exactly as it appeared. Every folder, every label, every stack of papers. If someone moved anything again, I would know. For the first time since Daniel's death, I felt as though I were protecting my home from someone I loved instead of from strangers. That realization broke my heart. But another realization frightened me even more. If I was right, the recording wasn't the beginning. It was only the first mistake someone had made. And if one mistake existed, there were probably others waiting for me to find them. The following Monday, I decided to stop searching my memories and start searching my paperwork. Memories could lie. Documents usually didn't. After breakfast, I locked the front door, carried a fresh cup of coffee into my office, and spread every important file across the dining room table. Daniel would have laughed if he'd seen the mess. Whenever he balanced the checkbook, he needed one folder. I somehow needed 20. I began with the simplest records. Monthly bank statements. Every deposit matched. Every withdrawal made sense. My Social Security, my teacher's pension, household bills, nothing unusual. I checked the savings account Daniel and I had built over 4 decades. The balance looked exactly as I expected. No suspicious transfers, no missing money. I felt a small wave of relief. Maybe this entire nightmare existed only inside my imagination. Then I remembered the words from the recording. After she signs. If money hadn't moved, maybe paperwork had. I opened the folder containing my estate planning documents. Inside were copies of my will, medical directives, power of attorney paperwork, and beneficiary information for my retirement accounts. Everything appeared neat, organized, untouched, until one page caught my attention. A yellow sticky note clung to the corner. It simply read, "Review beneficiaries." The handwriting wasn't mine. I stared at it. I always printed in neat block letters. These words leaned slightly to the right, curved, elegant, almost certainly written by a woman. Had Emily written it, or had I? For several seconds, I honestly couldn't remember. Growing older teaches you something no one prepares you for. The hardest part isn't forgetting. It's wondering whether you've forgotten. I carefully removed the sticky note and placed it beside the folder. Next, I opened my retirement account statements. Near the back, I found something unexpected. An appointment reminder from 8 months earlier. Attorney consultation, estate review. I remembered the meeting, barely. Emily had driven me because my car had been in the repair shop. I could picture us leaving together that rainy morning. She'd waited in the lobby while I met with the attorney. Or at least, I thought she had. Another memory surfaced. When we returned to the car, Emily asked, "Everything go okay?" "Yes." "Any changes?" "No." "Good." I hadn't thought anything about those questions. She'd sounded interested, concerned, supportive. Now every word felt heavier. I searched the folder again. Near the bottom lay another document. Draft beneficiary review. Unsigned, never finalized. Attached was another handwritten note. Discuss next visit. Again, not my handwriting. A chill ran through me. I compared both sticky notes. The writing matched. Someone had reviewed these documents. Someone who wasn't me? I searched every page for initials. Nothing. No signature, no explanation. Only reminders. I reached for Daniel's reading glasses. I'd kept them after he died. They sat on my desk because somehow wearing them made me feel closer to him. Using the magnifying lenses, I noticed faint impressions on one sheet of paper, as though someone had written on another page resting on top of it. I tilted the paper toward the sunlight, very faintly. One word appeared. Ryan. Below it, something resembling a signature. I couldn't read it clearly. Was it actually Ryan's or only his name written as a note? I wasn't sure. That uncertainty frustrated me again. Still, one thought refused to leave. Why had someone been reviewing beneficiary information without mentioning it to me? I decided to call the attorney's office, not to accuse anyone, simply to ask a few questions. The receptionist answered cheerfully. "Good morning, Hamilton Legal Group." "Hello, this is Linda Crawford. How may I help you today?" "I met with Mr. Hamilton several months ago about updating my estate documents." "Yes, Mrs. Crawford. I was wondering, did we complete everything?" She typed for several seconds. "No, ma'am." "No, our notes indicate the review was started, but no changes were finalized." I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "So nothing was changed?" "No." "You chose to keep your existing documents." "Thank you." "Is there anything else?" I hesitated, then asked carefully, "Did anyone come with me that day?" "You had a guest." My daughter-in-law. I believe so. Did she participate in the meeting? No. She remained outside, exactly as I'd remembered. For a moment, relief returned. Emily hadn't attended. She couldn't know everything discussed. Unless she'd asked afterward, or unless I'd told her myself. I thanked the receptionist and ended the call. Nothing illegal had happened. Nothing had been changed. That mattered. But another question immediately replaced it. If Emily already knew nothing had changed, why did someone on the recording say, after she signs? Signs what? Later that afternoon, I visited my bank. Not because I suspected fraud, because I wanted copies of every document connected to my accounts. The branch manager, Susan, had known Daniel and me for years. She smiled warmly. Linda, it's been too long. I need copies of a few records. Of course. While she printed the paperwork, we chatted about ordinary things. The weather, retirement, her grandchildren, normal conversation. Then she casually asked, "Everything all right?" Why do you ask? You've never requested this many records before. I forced a smile. I'm trying to organize everything. She nodded. That's always a good idea. Her words lingered in my mind during the drive home. Organize everything. That was exactly what Emily had wanted to help me do. Had she simply been trying to make my life easier, or had she wanted access to information? The line between kindness and manipulation suddenly felt incredibly thin. That evening, I spread the new bank records across my kitchen table. Again, nothing missing, nothing stolen, no suspicious withdrawals. Then I noticed something almost laughably small. A brochure tucked inside one envelope. Planning your legacy. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. Inside, someone had circled a sentence with blue ink. Review your beneficiaries after every major life event. Blue ink. Emily always carried blue pens. I remembered because she'd once joked black ink looked boring. Could she have circled it? Maybe? Could the banker have also possible? Every answer seemed to create two more questions. Around sunset, I called Margaret after all. I think I'm losing my mind. You don't sound crazy. I feel crazy. What happened? I've started noticing little things. What kind of things? I honestly don't know anymore. Margaret became quiet. Then she said something that stayed with me. Linda, when Daniel was sick, remember how you noticed tiny changes before any doctor did? I remember. You weren't imagining those. No. You paid attention. I hadn't thought about that in years. Daniel developed a persistent cough months before his diagnosis. Every doctor dismissed it. I hadn't. Sometimes noticing small things isn't paranoia. Sometimes it's survival. After hanging up, I gathered every document into neat stacks. I placed them inside a new locking file box instead of returning them to the cabinet. Then, I bought a small notebook. On the first page, I wrote today's date. Below it, I listed every discovery. Nothing stolen. Estate review never completed. Unsigned beneficiary documents. Unknown handwriting. Ryan's name on draft paperwork. The list wasn't proof, but it was becoming a pattern, and patterns rarely appear by accident. As I closed the notebook, one thought echoed louder than every other. Whoever had planned something involving my signature hadn't given up. They had only been waiting for the right moment. For 2 days, nothing happened. No strange phone calls, no unexpected visitors, no new clues. The silence should have calmed me. Instead, it made me nervous. Secrets have a way of growing in silence. Thursday morning, I stepped outside to collect my mail. Margaret Collins was trimming the roses along the fence between our yards. She smiled when she saw me. "Morning, Linda." "Morning. You look tired again." "I haven't been sleeping much." She leaned against the fence. "I've been meaning to ask you something." My heart skipped. "What is it?" "Were you expecting visitors a few weeks ago?" I frowned. "What visitors?" Margaret looked surprised. "I assumed they were with you." "No." She set her gardening shears down. "Well, now you've got me wondering." I walked closer. "What did you see?" "It was probably nothing." "Margaret," she hesitated. "About 3 weeks ago, I saw a dark blue sedan parked in your driveway." "I wasn't home that day." "I know." "How do you know?" "You told me you were spending the afternoon with your church group." She was right. Every third Wednesday, I volunteered at the church food pantry. I left around noon and usually didn't return until after 4. Margaret continued. "A man got out of the car." "What did he look like?" "Middle-aged. Gray hair. Business clothes. He wasn't dressed like a repairman." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. "What happened?" "He stood on your porch for a minute. Then Emily arrived." I stared at her. "Emily?" Margaret nodded. "She unlocked your front door." Every muscle in my body stiffened. I had given Emily a spare key, only for emergencies. "What time was this?" "A little after 1. And they went inside?" "Yes." "Together." "How long did they stay?" Margaret looked up, trying to remember. "Maybe 45 minutes. No more than an hour." I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Did Ryan come?" "No. Only Emily and the man." I thanked Margaret and walked back toward my house. My hands were trembling. Emily had never mentioned visiting my home that afternoon, not once. I unlocked my front door and stepped inside. The silence suddenly felt different, not peaceful, violated. I slowly walked from room to room. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, office. Nothing appeared disturbed, but now I knew someone else had walked these floors while I was away. Someone I had never invited. I sat at the dining table and opened my notebook. New entry. 3 weeks ago. Emily entered my home with an unknown man while I was volunteering. Stayed approximately 45 minutes. Did not mention visit afterward. I underlined the last sentence twice. If there had been a good reason, why hide it? That afternoon, I searched my calendar. 3 weeks earlier, Wednesday, church pantry, exactly as Margaret remembered. I checked my phone. No missed calls from Emily. No text messages asking permission. Nothing. I wanted to believe she had forgotten to mention it, but forgetting something that significant seemed unlikely. Then another thought struck me. The mystery man. Could he be the same voice from the recording I couldn't know? Margaret hadn't spoken with him. She had only seen him. Still, the timeline fit too neatly. I decided to ask one careful question. Not to Emily, to Ryan. I called him during his lunch break. "Hey, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." "Everything okay?" "I was wondering something." "Shoot." "Were you at my house a few Wednesdays ago?" "No. I was working." "I thought maybe Emily stopped by." There was a brief pause. "I think she mentioned checking your mail." "My mail?" "Yeah. I honestly don't remember." That answer surprised me. Ryan didn't sound rehearsed. He sounded uncertain. "What made you ask?" "Oh." I forced a small laugh. "I found some junk mail I don't remember seeing." "Probably that." "You know Emily? She's always trying to help." "Right." We chatted another minute before hanging up. One thing bothered me. Ryan never mentioned another man. Either he truly didn't know, or he assumed I already did. I wasn't ready to decide which possibility frightened me more. That evening, I walked around the outside of my house. Daniel had installed 2 motion lights years ago. Both still worked. Near the garage, I noticed something else. A faint shoe print in the flower bed. Old. Probably weeks old. Rain had nearly erased it. Still. Someone had walked close to the office window. Coincidence, maybe. I photographed it anyway. By now I had become someone I barely recognized. Photographing footprints, writing notebooks full of observations, checking locks twice every night. I used to trust everyone. Now I trusted almost no one. The next morning, I visited the hardware store. The young cashier smiled. "Need help finding anything? I'd like a lockbox." "For documents?" "Yes. And maybe a security camera." The words surprised even me. An hour later, I was home installing a small camera facing the front door. I felt ridiculous. Then I remembered the recording. Emily's whisper. Margaret's story. The unknown visitor. No, I wasn't being ridiculous. I was finally paying attention. That afternoon, I replayed the recording again. This time, I closed my eyes. Instead of focusing on the words, I listened to the voices. The man's tone remained calm. Professional. Measured. Not friendly. Not emotional. He sounded like someone discussing paperwork every day. An accountant. A financial advisor. A lawyer. Or someone pretending to be one. The possibility lingered. Professional voices inspire trust, especially for people my age. I suddenly understood how easily someone could convince an older widow to sign papers she didn't fully understand. That realization made me cold. Around sunset, the new security camera sent its first notification. Motion detected. My heart raced. I opened the app. Only a squirrel. I laughed despite myself. Maybe I was becoming paranoid after all. Then another notification arrived 10 minutes later. This time, it was Emily. She stood on my porch holding a casserole dish. I opened the door. "Emily, I made chicken and rice." "You didn't have to." "I know." She smiled exactly as she always had. "I was nearby." "I thought I'd check on you." Check on me. The words landed differently now. She glanced past me into the house. "You've been organizing, just cleaning." "I could help." "I'm almost finished." For the first time since I'd known her, disappointment flashed across her face. Only for a second. Then it disappeared beneath another warm smile. "Well?" She handed me the casserole. "Call if you need anything." "I will." She hugged me. I hugged her back, but something had changed. Her embrace felt exactly the same. Mine didn't. After she drove away, I watched the security footage. Nothing suspicious. She simply delivered dinner. Yet I noticed one tiny detail. Before ringing the bell, she looked directly toward my office window. Not once, twice. As though checking whether someone was inside. Maybe she was looking for me. Maybe she was looking at the room where I kept my documents. I added another note to my notebook. Not because it proved anything, because I had learned something important. Truth isn't usually discovered through one dramatic moment. It's uncovered through dozens of tiny details that eventually fit together. And for the first time, those tiny details were beginning to point in the same direction. By the end of that week, I realized I couldn't keep avoiding Ryan forever. If Emily was hiding something from him, I needed to know. If he was hiding something from me, I needed to know that too. But I also knew one careless question could destroy everything. So I planned the conversation carefully. No accusations. No mention of the recording. No mention of the man. Only questions that sounded natural. On Saturday morning, I called Ryan. "Would you like to have breakfast with me?" He sounded surprised. "Just the two of us?" "Yes. I'd love that." We agreed to meet at the small diner where Daniel and I had eaten nearly every Saturday for 20 years. The waitress still remembered my order: coffee, scrambled eggs, wheat toast. Ryan arrived a few minutes late, still wearing his company polo shirt. He hugged me. "Sorry I'm late. You never could estimate traffic." He laughed. "Still true." For the first 10 minutes, we talked about ordinary things. Sophie's upcoming science fair, Ethan's baseball tournament, the weather, work, everything except the questions filling my notebook. Finally, I decided to begin. "You've been working a lot." Ryan sighed. "Too much." "You look tired." "I feel tired." "Everything okay?" He stirred his coffee without answering. Then he forced a smile. "Just life." That wasn't an answer. I waited. Silence has a way of making people continue talking. After several seconds, he did. "The company's cutting budgets. I've got more responsibility. Same paycheck. I'm sorry. It'll pass." I nodded. Then I asked another careful question. "How are things at home?" He looked confused. "Good. You and Emily doing okay?" He smiled. "She's amazing." That answer came too quickly, almost rehearsed. I kept my expression neutral. "She certainly takes care of everyone." "She does." "I don't know what we'd do without her." Again. Immediate. Confident. I decided to change directions. "Emily mentioned helping me organize my paperwork again." Ryan nodded. "She worries about you." "I'm capable of handling my own papers." "I know. But she means well." "Has she ever helped you organize your finances?" He laughed. "I wish." "No, neither of us has time." That surprised me. Emily had seemed unusually interested in my paperwork. Yet Ryan claimed she rarely touched theirs. I filed that away. Another small inconsistency. The waitress refilled our coffee. Ryan thanked her. Then he looked back at me. "Why all the questions?" I smiled. "I guess getting older makes you think about practical things." "Like what, estate planning?" His smile faded slightly. "Oh, you don't have to worry about that now." "I know. I've already handled most of it." He nodded. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "Emily told me that." I blinked. "Emily?" "Yeah?" "She said you already met with your attorney." "I did." "So everything's taken care of." His wording caught my attention. Not, "You told me." Instead, "Emily told me." I spoke carefully. "Did she say anything else?" Ryan shrugged. "Just that your documents were basically finished." Finished, but they weren't. The attorney had confirmed the review was never completed. I forced myself to stay calm. "Interesting." "What?" "Oh, nothing." Ryan studied me for several seconds. "You seem different lately?" "Different, quieter." "I've just been thinking. About Dad. Among other things." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I miss him too." The warmth in his eyes looked genuine, not forced, not manipulative. For a moment, I felt guilty again. Maybe I was unfairly dragging Ryan into something that had nothing to do with him. Then he spoke again. "Emily's been worried about you." "Has she?" "She thinks you're spending too much time alone." "Maybe." "She even suggested moving you closer to us someday." Closer. Another thought flashed through my mind. Closer to help me or closer to supervise me? I hated that my mind automatically questioned every kindness. After breakfast, Ryan walked me to my car. Before I opened the driver's door, I asked one final question. When was the last time you looked at your own estate paperwork? He laughed. I honestly don't know. Emily handles most of that stuff. You don't review it together. Not really. You trust her. With my life. He answered without hesitation. Then he hugged me again and drove away. I remained sitting inside my car for several minutes. One sentence kept repeating in my head. Emily handles most of that stuff. On the drive home, I replayed every answer. Nothing directly proved Ryan was involved. If anything, he sounded like someone who trusted his wife completely. That made him either innocent or very good at pretending. I wasn't ready to believe the second possibility. Back home, I opened my notebook. Today's discoveries: Ryan believes estate paperwork is complete. Attorney confirmed it is not. Ryan says Emily manages many financial details. Ryan learned information from Emily, not from me. Another contradiction. Another pattern. That afternoon, my security camera alerted me again. This time, it wasn't Emily. It was the mail carrier. But while checking the footage, I noticed something else. 2 days earlier, just before Emily delivered the casserole, she had paused beside my mailbox, not for 1 second, almost 20. She appeared to glance inside before walking to my porch. Maybe she was checking whether my mail had arrived. Maybe not. The uncertainty returned. Around dinner time, Sophie called. Grandma? Hi, sweetheart. Mom says we're making lasagna tomorrow. That sounds delicious. Are you coming? I don't think so this week. Her voice became disappointed. But I wanted to show you my science project. I promise I'll see it soon. You always keep your promises. My eyes filled with tears. Children trust so completely. I prayed that whatever was happening between the adults never stole that innocence from her. After hanging up, I realized something else. If Emily truly had terrible intentions, she hid them exceptionally well. Not only from me, from Sophie, from Ethan, even from Ryan. That required planning, patience, practice. Late that night, I listened to the recording again. One sentence suddenly stood out more than ever. Ryan doesn't need every detail. Until now, I'd assumed that sentence meant Ryan was involved. Now I wondered if it meant the exact opposite. Maybe Emily was deliberately keeping information from him. Maybe Ryan wasn't part of the plan. Maybe he was simply another person being protected from the truth. Or manipulated by it. The possibility changed everything. For the first time since finding the recording, I no longer saw Ryan as my primary suspect. I saw him as someone who might be standing exactly where I had been only days earlier, trusting the wrong person, and having absolutely no idea. That night, I stopped trying to hear the recording. I started trying to understand it. There is a difference. For nearly a week, I had replayed the same 23 minutes over and over, hoping some hidden answer would magically appear. It never did. Then Margaret gave me an idea. Her grandson worked in audio production. He cleans up recordings all the time, she told me. Maybe he can make the background clearer. At first, I resisted. The fewer people who knew, the better. But Margaret assured me her grandson Ben Collins could help without asking questions. He won't pry. He'll just clean the sound. The next afternoon, I carried a copy of the recording on the flash drive to Margaret's house. Ben was 29, polite and surprisingly professional. He plugged the drive into his laptop. What exactly are we listening for? I'm not sure. I just need the voices to be clearer. No problem. He wore headphones and imported the recording into editing software I had never seen before. Colored sound waves filled the screen. He adjusted several controls, removed background hiss, lowered the noise from clattering dishes, boosted the quieter voices. For nearly 20 minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, Ben looked up. "I think I found something." My heartbeat quickened. He replayed the conversation. Emily's whisper came through more clearly than ever. "She'll never know." The man's voice followed. "You need to be careful." Then Ben paused the recording. "There's something underneath that sentence." He isolated another audio layer. The dishes disappeared. The children's laughter faded. Suddenly, I heard words I had completely missed before. "Thursday?" The man's voice again. "Maple Avenue." Ben rewound it. We listened 3 times. Each time, the words became easier to recognize. Thursday, Maple Avenue. Then another fragment. "Bring the papers." My mouth went dry. Ben continued cleaning the audio. Another sentence emerged. Emily's voice. "I'll meet you there." Then, "After she signs." The man answered quietly. "Good." Several seconds later came the sentence I already knew. "Ryan doesn't need every detail. It's safer this way." Ben removed his headphones. "Does that help?" I could barely speak. "Yes. It helps." He looked uncomfortable. "Is everything okay?" I forced a smile. "It will be." He copied the enhanced recording onto my flash drive. As I drove home, my mind repeated 3 new pieces of information. Thursday, Maple Avenue. Bring the papers. For the first time, I had something concrete. A location, a day, a possible meeting. That evening, I searched online. Maple Avenue wasn't a small street. It stretched across several neighborhoods in Columbus. Banks, insurance offices, coffee shops, medical buildings, restaurants, dozens of possibilities. Still, it was more than I had yesterday. I opened my notebook, underlined the words. Thursday, Maple Avenue. Bring the papers. Then I remembered something else. Emily had mentioned shopping on Thursday several times over the past year. She always said she preferred running errands while Ryan was at work. Had she really been shopping or meeting someone? I checked my calendar. The coming Thursday was only 3 days away. If the recording referred to an upcoming meeting, could it still happen, or had it already happened weeks earlier? There was only one way to find out. I decided I would quietly observe. No confrontation, no accusations, just watch. The following morning, Emily called. "Hi, Linda." "Good morning. I was wondering if you'd like to come over Thursday." Thursday. The word instantly caught my attention. "What for?" "I found a few family photo albums. I thought we could organize them." Organize. Again. Everything suddenly felt connected. "I don't think I can." "Oh. You already have plans. I've got an appointment." That wasn't entirely true. But I needed Thursday free. "I understand." Her voice remained cheerful. "Maybe next week." "Maybe." After hanging up, I sat quietly for several minutes. Was the invitation innocent, or was she making sure I wouldn't be somewhere else I couldn't tell anymore? On Wednesday evening, I prepared carefully. I charged my phone, packed the flash drive, placed my notebook inside my purse, filled the gas tank. It felt absurd. I wasn't a detective. I was a retired schoolteacher. Yet here I was preparing to follow my own daughter-in-law. I barely slept that night. Thursday arrived gray and cool. Around 9 in the morning, I parked across the street from Ryan and Emily's subdivision. Far enough away that no one would notice me. Close enough to watch. At 9:42, Emily's SUV pulled out of the driveway. She was alone. I waited 30 seconds before following. Not too close, just close enough to keep her in sight. She drove across town, past the shopping center, past the grocery store, past the pharmacy, none of the places she usually mentioned. Instead, she continued toward downtown Columbus. Finally, she turned onto Maple Avenue. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. The recording hadn't been talking about the past. It was talking about this. Emily parked beside a modest brick office building. No large company logo, no law firm sign, just several small businesses listed on a directory. I parked half a block away. She remained inside her vehicle for nearly 2 minutes. Then another car arrived, a dark blue sedan, exactly the kind Margaret had described. A gray-haired man stepped out. Even from a distance, something about his posture looked familiar. Professional, calm. He carried a thin leather portfolio under one arm. Emily walked toward him. They shook hands, not warmly, businesslike. Then they entered the building together. I stared at the directory through my binoculars. The lettering was too small to read from where I sat. Still, I knew one thing. Emily hadn't come here to shop. She had come to meet him. And unless there was an innocent explanation, the recording had just led me directly to the man whose voice I had been hearing all week. I didn't know his name yet. I didn't know what business they were conducting. But for the first time since that birthday dinner, I was no longer chasing shadows. I was following a trail, and it was leading exactly where the recording had promised. I stayed inside my car for almost 15 minutes. The brick building looked ordinary, too ordinary. No flashing signs, no busy parking lot. Just a quiet 2-story office building where people walked in and out carrying folders instead of shopping bags. I reminded myself why I was there. Not to confront anyone, not to accuse anyone, only to learn the truth. I stepped out of my car and crossed the street slowly. On the glass beside the entrance hung a directory listing the businesses inside. An accountant, a tax preparer, a small insurance agency, a physical therapist, and one office on the second floor. Reed Document Services. My breath caught. Reed. The name instantly reminded me of the recording. I still didn't know the man's identity, but seeing that name made something click inside my mind. I walked into the lobby as calmly as I could. No one paid attention to me. A young receptionist sat behind a desk typing on her computer. I smiled politely. "Good morning?" "Good morning?" "I'm looking for Reed Document Services." She pointed toward the elevator. "Second floor." "Thank you." I didn't press the elevator button. Instead, I sat in a chair near the lobby window where I could see the entrance. If Emily and the man came back down, I wanted to see them. About 20 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Emily stepped out first. She looked relaxed, not nervous, not frightened. The gray-haired man followed behind her. He carried the same leather portfolio. This time, however, I noticed something new. Emily was holding a large manila envelope. Thick, heavy, the kind used for legal paperwork. The man said something I couldn't hear. Emily nodded. Then she slipped the envelope into her tote bag. They shook hands. Again, not warmly, professionally. She walked toward the parking lot. The man returned upstairs. Neither of them noticed me sitting behind the lobby plants. Only after Emily drove away did I finally stand. I walked outside and wrote everything into my notebook before I could forget. Location, time, building name, envelope, handshake, every detail mattered. Then I looked back at the directory once more. Reed Document Services? The name sounded familiar. Where had I heard it before? Suddenly, it hit me. The recording. I had always called him the mystery man. What if his name was Reed not because I had heard it, because his office was Reed Document Services? Could he be Thomas Reed? The thought sent another chill through me. I returned to my car but didn't start the engine. Instead, I watched the entrance for another half-hour. Eventually, the gray-haired man left. He locked the office door. Walked to the same blue sedan Margaret had described. Before driving away, he placed the leather portfolio on the passenger seat. Something white slipped partially out of it. Paper. Lots of paper. I raised my phone and quietly snapped several photographs. One of him leaving the building. One beside the blue sedan. One of the license plate. I had never secretly photographed another human being in my entire life. Now I had done it 3 times in 10 minutes. On the drive home, I kept asking myself one question. If everything Emily was doing was perfectly legal, why all the secrecy? Why whisper? Why meet while Ryan was working? Why tell me she was organizing photographs? Nothing added up. Back home, I enlarged the photographs on my computer. The images weren't perfect, but they were clear enough. The man appeared to be in his early 50s. Gray at the temples, business suit, professional briefcase. Nothing about him looked threatening. That somehow made him even more unsettling. People rarely fear someone who looks respectable. I zoomed in on the office sign. Read Document Services. Beneath it, smaller lettering read, Estate Documents. Trust Preparation Notary Services, Estate Documents. I stared at the screen. Every clue suddenly pointed in the same direction. The recording. The beneficiary paperwork. Emily's questions. The meetings. My attorney. Now this office. No money had disappeared. Not yet. The target had never been my bank account. The target had always been my paperwork. Late that afternoon, Ryan called unexpectedly. Hey, Mom? Hi. What are you doing? Oh. I looked at the photographs on my computer. Just organizing some things. I wanted to ask you something. Go ahead. Emily said you couldn't come over today because you had an appointment. I did. Everything okay? Yes. What kind of appointment? The question surprised me. I just had a few errands. Oh. He sounded relieved. Then he laughed softly. Emily worries about you. I know. She thought maybe you weren't feeling well. Interesting. Emily hadn't told Ryan she'd spent the morning meeting another man. She'd told him she was worried about me. Another omission. Another small lie. After hanging up, I added another line to my notebook. Emily concealed today's meeting from Ryan. The list was becoming impossible to ignore. That evening, Margaret stopped by with fresh zucchini bread. You've hardly eaten all week. She knew me too well. I invited her inside. She immediately noticed the photographs scattered across my dining table. Who's that? The man you saw. She adjusted her glasses. Yes? That's him. I'd recognize that blue car anywhere. She looked at me carefully. What are you going to do? I don't know. You can't keep carrying this alone. I know. But I still don't have proof. You have more than you did. Not enough. Margaret nodded. She understood. Before leaving, she placed her hand over mine. Just promise me one thing. What? Don't confront anyone until you know exactly what you're dealing with. I promise. That night, I lay awake thinking about one simple fact. Emily had never asked me for money, never borrowed $1, never pressured me about my will. She had been patient, almost too patient. Whatever plan existed, it wasn't impulsive. It had been carefully prepared, slowly, quietly, step by step. And now, for the first time, I knew exactly where one part of that plan had been taking place. Reed Document Services. The name would stay with me long after I turned off the light. Because deep inside, I knew my next answer wasn't waiting inside another recording. It was waiting behind the door of that office. I had a name, or at least part of one. Reed. That was more than I had a week ago. But I still didn't know whether the man was helping Emily with something perfectly legal or something deeply dishonest. I needed one more piece of the puzzle, and strangely enough, that piece came from Ryan. On Sunday afternoon, he called. "Mom, are you home?" "I am." "Can I stop by?" "Of course." 20 minutes later, he pulled into my driveway alone. No Emily, no children, just Ryan. He looked exhausted. His shoulders sagged as he stepped into the house. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "You never interrupt." I poured him a cup of coffee. For a while, neither of us spoke. He stared into the mug as though searching for answers floating on the surface. Finally, he sighed. "I'm embarrassed." "About what?" "Our finances." I stayed quiet. He continued. "You probably think we've got everything together." "I've never judged you." "I know. But things haven't been easy." He rubbed his forehead. "The construction industry slowed down last year. My bonuses disappeared. We've been carrying more credit card debt than I ever wanted." My heart softened. This wasn't a confession of guilt. It was a confession of fear. "What about Emily?" "She's been trying to hold everything together. She even picked up freelance bookkeeping work at night." I hadn't known that. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ryan smiled sadly. "Because you're my mom." "I didn't want you worrying." I reached across the table. "You've never been a burden." "I know. But after Dad passed away," his voice cracked, "I promised myself I'd take care of you." Those words sounded sincere, painfully sincere. Then he said something that made me listen even more carefully. "Emily's been looking into financial planning." "What kind?" "You know? Estate planning. Insurance. Retirement. She keeps saying we need to think long-term." I chose my next words carefully. "Did she ever mention someone named Reed?" Ryan frowned. "No. Should she have?" "I was just curious." He shook his head. "I don't recognize the name." That answer came naturally. No hesitation. No pause. If Ryan knew Thomas Reed, he hid it remarkably well. But my instincts told me something different. He truly didn't know. I changed the subject. "You mentioned debt. How bad is it?" He looked embarrassed. "The mortgage. Some medical bills after Ethan broke his arm. The roof needed replacing. We're managing. Barely." Suddenly, Emily's behavior became slightly easier to understand. Financial pressure changes people, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Still, desperation doesn't excuse deception. I asked quietly, "Have you ever asked me for money?" Ryan looked offended. "Never." "Why?" "Because you haven't." "I wouldn't. I couldn't. I'd rather work 3 jobs." I believed him, without question. That was important. He wasn't waiting for an inheritance. He wasn't trying to pressure me, at least not knowingly. Then another memory surfaced. The recording. Ryan doesn't need every detail. For the first time, I heard those words differently. Not as partners hiding something from me, but as Emily hiding something from Ryan. After Ryan left, I sat alone in the living room for nearly an hour. The story inside my head had changed. Originally, I imagined Ryan and Emily working together. Now? I wasn't sure. Maybe Ryan was simply trusting his wife the same way I had trusted her. That possibility made me unexpectedly sad. The following morning, I decided to organize every clue on a large sheet of poster board. Teacher habits never disappear. I drew 3 columns: fact, assumption, unknown. Under fact, I listed everything I could prove. Emily whispered, "She'll never know." Emily met with the man from Reed Document Services. Emily entered my home while I was away. Estate review paperwork existed. No legal changes had been completed. Ryan admitted financial struggles. Ryan denied knowing Reed. Under assumption, I wrote Emily wanted me to change my estate documents. The man was helping her. Ryan was unaware. Then I stared at the unknown column. It was almost empty. Why? Because every important question still lived there. What papers? What was inside the envelope? What exactly did Reed Document Services prepare? Was anything illegal happening or merely unethical? I suddenly realized I had been chasing motives without understanding actions. That needed to change. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Emily. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, Emily." "Hi, Linda. You doing okay?" "I am. I was wondering, would you mind recommending your attorney?" "My attorney?" "You mentioned updating your paperwork?" "I've been thinking Ryan and I should finally get serious about ours." My pulse quickened. Interesting. Very interesting. If she was already working with Reed, why ask about my attorney unless... She wanted to know whether I had spoken with him again. I answered carefully. "I haven't scheduled another appointment." "Oh, I thought maybe you had." "No." She sounded relieved. Only slightly, but enough for me to notice. We talked another minute before hanging up. The moment the call ended, I wrote another note, Emily checking whether I contacted attorney. Why the pattern continued growing. That evening, Margaret came over for tea. I showed her my 3-column chart. She studied it silently. Then she tapped one sentence. No legal changes had been completed. Yes, that's important. I know. It means whatever Emily wanted. She hadn't finished. Margaret nodded. So you still have time. Time. The word echoed inside my mind. Whatever Emily planned, it wasn't over. Otherwise, she wouldn't still be meeting Reed. She wouldn't still be asking about my attorney. She wouldn't still be offering to organize my paperwork. Something remained unfinished, and that meant I still had a chance to stop it. Before going to bed, I opened the enhanced recording one more time. Not to listen, just to read the transcript I'd typed. Halfway down the page, my eyes landed on one sentence I had almost ignored. "I just need a little more time." At first, I'd assumed Emily was asking for time. Now I wondered, time for what? To convince me to prepare documents, to find the right moment? Whatever the answer was, I knew one thing with certainty. Emily wasn't finished, and neither was I. By now, I had enough clues to see the outline of the truth, but I still needed proof. Not suspicion, not intuition, proof. On Monday morning, I called my attorney again. This time, I asked a different question. "Mr. Hamilton, may I schedule another appointment?" "Of course, Linda." "Would tomorrow morning work?" It would. The following day, I walked into his office, carrying my notebook, the photographs, and a copy of the recording. For the first time since this nightmare began, I told someone everything. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just the facts. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he folded his hands. "Mrs. Crawford, I can't say anyone has committed a crime. I understand. But I can tell you something important." I leaned forward. No one, not even a family member, can legally change your estate documents without your voluntary signature. I know. However, he paused. There are situations where someone may pressure an older adult into signing documents they don't fully understand. My stomach tightened. Pressure, repeated conversations, misleading explanations, presenting paperwork as routine, creating urgency. He looked directly at me. That's why I always insist clients meet with me privately. A memory flashed through my mind. The recording. After she signs, Mr. Hamilton continued, if someone wanted to influence your decisions, they might first gather information. What kind? Your assets. Beneficiaries. Family relationships. Existing estate plans. Every word matched Emily's behavior. The questions, the filing cabinet, the paperwork, the meetings. I slowly took out the photographs. Do you know this man? Mr. Hamilton studied them. His expression changed immediately. Yes. You do? That's Thomas Reed. My heartbeat stopped. I knew it. He isn't an attorney. No. He owns a document preparation business. What exactly does that mean? He prepares legal forms. Wills, trust templates, power of attorney paperwork. But he cannot give legal advice. I felt sick. So why would someone meet with him? Usually because his services cost less than hiring a lawyer. He handed the photographs back. I've also heard complaints. What kind of complaints? He sometimes lets clients believe document preparation is the same as legal advice. It isn't. I closed my eyes. Thomas Reed. The mystery voice finally had a name. And one more thing, Mr. Hamilton added. If anyone asked him to prepare estate documents using information gathered elsewhere, they could walk into a meeting with nearly everything already drafted. The room suddenly felt colder. Emily hadn't been trying to steal money directly. She had been preparing paperwork before I ever saw it, so that when the day came, everything would already be ready. I drove home in silence. The puzzle was finally complete. Emily had spent months collecting information. Thomas Reed had prepared documents. The recording captured them discussing the final step. My signature. When I reached home, I spread everything across the dining room table one last time. The recording transcript, photographs, bank records, estate documents, notebook. Every clue now fit together perfectly. Around 3 that afternoon, my phone rang. Emily, I answered. Hi, Linda. Hi. I was wondering, would you like to meet for lunch tomorrow? My pulse quickened. Just us. Why, I've been thinking. About what? Your future. Those 2 words sent a chill through my body. My future. You've always said you wanted everything organized. I found someone who can explain a few options. There it was. Not a surprise. Not family photos. Not organizing closets. Paperwork. I asked quietly, who? A document specialist. Very experienced. My voice remained calm. What's his name? A tiny pause. Then, Thomas Reed. I closed my eyes. Finally, she had said it herself. I answered carefully. I've never heard of him. He's wonderful. He helps families prepare everything. You don't even need a lawyer. That sentence hit me harder than anything else. Not because it was illegal, because it explained everything. Thomas Reed wasn't replacing an attorney. He was replacing trust. Emily continued speaking. It'll only take an hour. No pressure. We'll just talk. No pressure. Those exact words made me think of the recording. After she signs, I smiled even though she couldn't see me. I'll think about it. Wonderful. Call me tonight. After hanging up, I sat perfectly still. She had invited me. Voluntarily, directly. Exactly as Mr. Hamilton predicted. The papers were ready. All they needed now was me. I immediately called Mr. Hamilton back. I think it's happening. What happened? Emily invited me to meet Thomas Reed tomorrow. His answer came without hesitation. Go. I blinked. You want me to go? Yes. But don't sign anything. Not a single page. I won't. If they present documents, bring them to me. If they refuse, you'll have your answer. For the first time in days, I felt something I hadn't experienced since finding the recording. Confidence. Not because the situation was safe. Because I finally understood it. Tomorrow wouldn't be about discovering the truth. Tomorrow would be about watching the truth reveal itself. And for the first time, Emily had no idea that I already knew exactly who Thomas Reed was, or why she wanted me to meet him. I hardly slept that night. Not because I was afraid, because I finally knew the truth was about to step into the light. When morning came, I dressed carefully. Nothing fancy. Just the navy blue dress Daniel always said made me look confident. Before leaving, I placed one thing inside my purse. The flash drive containing the recording. If everything went wrong, I wanted the truth with me. At 10 o'clock, Emily pulled into my driveway. She stepped out smiling, just as she always had. There you are. You look nice. So do you. She hugged me. For a brief second, I hugged her back. I couldn't help remembering all the birthdays, Christmas mornings, and family dinners we'd shared. Part of me still wished I was wrong. Part of me desperately hoped there would be some innocent explanation. We drove in silence. Emily filled the quiet with casual conversation. Sophie's science fair, Ethan's baseball practice. A new recipe she'd tried. She sounded perfectly normal. If I hadn't heard the recording, if I hadn't followed her, I never would have suspected anything. 20 minutes later, we parked outside Reed Document Services. Emily smiled. It won't take long. I'm sure. Inside, Thomas Reed greeted us immediately. Mrs. Crawford. His smile was polished, professional. He extended his hand. I'm Thomas Reed. I shook it. It's nice to meet you. In reality, it wasn't the first time we'd met. He simply didn't know I'd already heard his voice. He guided us into a conference room. A neat stack of folders sat on the table. Coffee waited beside them. Everything had been prepared in advance. Thomas sat across from me. Emily tells me you're very organized. I try to be. And you've already completed estate planning in the past. That's right. He nodded thoughtfully. Many people don't realize estate plans should be updated regularly. Families change. Financial situations change. Relationships change. Everything he said sounded reasonable. That was what made him dangerous. Truth mixed with persuasion. He slid a folder toward me. This is only a draft. No obligation. Just something for you to consider. I opened it slowly. Inside were estate planning forms, beneficiary worksheets, property distribution summaries. Nothing had been signed. Nothing had been notarized. But my name appeared throughout the documents. I looked at Emily. When did you prepare all this? She smiled nervously. I only wanted to help. Thomas added smoothly. Emily provided general information. We simply organized possibilities. General information. The words sounded harmless. I turned another page, then another. Suddenly, I stopped. One paragraph proposed transferring my home into a trust with Ryan named as successor trustee. Another recommended simplifying asset distribution. None of it was automatically wrong. But no one had ever discussed these changes with me. Thomas folded his hands. "What do you think?" Instead of answering, I asked quietly, "Did you prepare these before meeting me?" He hesitated. "Yes." "So the decisions were already drafted." "They're only suggestions?" Emily leaned forward. "Linda, I thought this would make things easier." "Easier for who?" She blinked. "For everyone." I closed the folder. "And if I signed today," Thomas answered, "we would schedule notarization. Then your attorney could finalize everything." That sentence caught my attention. "My attorney? I thought you told Emily I didn't need one." His face changed, only slightly, but enough. Emily interrupted quickly. "We just meant this saves time." I looked directly at her. "Emily, why didn't you tell Ryan?" Silence. Thomas glanced toward her. Emily looked down at the table. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't want to worry him." Exactly as the recording had suggested. Ryan didn't know every detail. I reached into my purse, pulled out the flash drive, placed it gently on the table. Both of them stared at it. Then I spoke. "I've already heard your conversation." Emily's face lost all color. Thomas froze. I continued calmly. "My phone recorded everything after my birthday dinner." Neither of them spoke. I took out my phone, pressed play. The room filled with Emily's whisper. "She'll never know." Then Thomas's voice. "After she signs." Emily closed her eyes. Thomas looked toward the door as though calculating whether he should leave. I let the recording continue. "Ryan doesn't need every detail. It's safer this way." When the audio stopped, the room fell completely silent. Emily began crying first. Not loudly, quietly, like someone whose strength had finally disappeared. "I'm sorry." She covered her face. "I'm so sorry." Thomas cleared his throat. "Mrs. Crawford," I raised one hand. "Don't." He fell silent. I turned back to Emily. "Tell me the truth. No excuses. No lies." "The truth." She nodded through tears. "I never wanted to steal from you." "I swear." "I believed." She struggled to breathe. "I believed if everything was already prepared, you'd agree. You'd see it made sense. You'd sign. Without feeling overwhelmed." I stared at her. "You planned all of this." "Yes. But not to hurt you." Ryan was drowning. "The mortgage. The debts. I thought, if everything was organized now, there'd never be confusion later." I asked quietly. "So why whisper?" She cried harder. "Because I knew it was wrong to hide it. And I knew if you asked too many questions, you might refuse before listening." Her honesty hurt almost as much as the deception. I looked at Thomas. "And you?" He lowered his eyes. "I should have insisted Mrs. Crawford meet independently. I shouldn't have encouraged private preparation. I made a serious professional mistake." "Professional mistake?" "Maybe. Moral failure?" "Definitely." I stood, picked up the folder, then the flash drive. Finally, I looked at Emily one last time. "I loved you like my own daughter." Fresh tears rolled down her face. "I know. And that's exactly why this hurts." Without another word, I walked out of Read Document Services. Not because I wanted to end the conversation, because the next conversation needed one more person in the room. Ryan. He deserved to hear the truth. Not from Emily. Not from Thomas. from the recording that neither of them knew had changed all of our lives. I drove straight home from Reed Document Services. Not because I wanted to be alone, because I needed to decide what happened next. One person still deserved the truth before anyone else. Ryan. I called him that evening. "Can you come over tomorrow?" "Sure." "Everything okay?" "I'd rather tell you in person." He paused. "You sound serious." "I am. I'll be there." The next afternoon, Ryan arrived just after lunch. This time, he wasn't smiling. He must have sensed something was wrong. The moment he stepped inside, he asked, "Mom, what happened?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I led him into the living room. On the coffee table sat everything: the notebook, the photographs, the folder from Thomas Reed, my phone. Ryan looked from one item to another. "I don't understand." "You will." I took a deep breath. "Before I say anything, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Listen until the end." He nodded. "I promise." I picked up my phone, pressed play. The recording filled the room. Emily's whisper. "She'll never know." Ryan frowned, then Thomas's voice. "You need to be careful." His expression changed as the recording continued. "So keep these. After she signs. Ryan doesn't need every detail. It's safer this way." Ryan's face went completely pale. He looked at me. "No." I stopped the recording. The room became silent. After several seconds, Ryan whispered, "What is this?" "My phone accidentally recorded it during my birthday dinner." He shook his head. "No, this can't be right." I quietly slid the photographs across the table. He looked at Thomas Reed standing beside Emily, then at the office building, then at the folder. I followed her. "You followed Emily?" "Yes." He looked hurt, then confused, then angry. "Who is that man?" "Thomas Reed. He prepares estate documents." Ryan stared at the pictures again. "I've never met him." "I know." He looked up quickly. "You know, I believe you." Those words broke something inside him. His shoulders dropped. Tears filled his eyes. "I swear, Mom. I didn't know." "I know." He covered his face with both hands. "I don't understand." "I thought she was helping us." I moved beside him, placed my hand gently on his shoulder. "I think she believed she was." "That doesn't make it right." He nodded silently. After several minutes, he finally asked, "Did she ask you to sign anything?" "Yesterday." His head snapped upward. "What?" "She took me to Reed Document Services." Ryan stood so quickly his chair nearly fell over. "What?" "She told me it was just paperwork." "I didn't sign." He began pacing across the room. "No." 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 He kept repeating the word as though refusing to believe it. Finally, he stopped. "I need to hear it from her." "I know." That evening, Ryan called Emily. He didn't yell. He simply said, "We're having dinner at Mom's house tomorrow. You need to come." His voice was so calm that even I felt uneasy. The next evening, everyone arrived. Emily, Ryan, Sophie, Ethan. The children had no idea why we were gathered. I had prepared spaghetti, garlic bread, salad, a completely ordinary family dinner. That was intentional. I wanted the children to eat before the adults spoke. After dessert, Ryan looked at Sophie. "Sweetheart, would you take Ethan into the backyard?" She looked confused. "Why?" "The adults need to talk." She nodded. Within seconds, the sliding glass door closed behind them. Silence filled the dining room. Emily looked around nervously. "What's going on?" Ryan answered quietly. "Mom?" I reached into my pocket, removed the flash drive. Emily immediately recognized it. Her face turned white. Without saying a word, I connected it to the television. The recording began. Nobody interrupted. Nobody moved. Emily stared at the floor. Ryan stared at his wife. The recording ended. Ryan whispered, "Tell me," Emily cried before speaking. "I was trying to fix everything." "What?" "Our debt. The future. Your mom's estate." Ryan slammed both hands onto the table. "My mother's estate. You never even talked to me." "I knew you'd say no. So you hid it. I was trying to protect us." Ryan laughed bitterly. "Protect us? You lied to my mother. You met another man. You prepared documents. You wanted her signature." Emily sobbed. "I never wanted to steal. I just thought, if everything was prepared, she might agree." Ryan shook his head slowly. "You used her trust." "No. I used my own fear." Those words hung in the air. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, I looked at Emily. "Did you ever intend to tell me the whole truth?" She couldn't answer. That silence answered for her. Ryan walked toward the kitchen window. He looked outside where Sophie and Ethan were chasing each other across the yard. Without turning around, he said, "I need some time." Emily whispered, "Ryan, I can't. I don't even know who you've become." She began crying again. "I've made the biggest mistake of my life." "I know." His voice cracked. "And now our children are going to pay for it too." That sentence broke every heart in the room, because it was true. I stood, walked over to Ryan, then to Emily. "I don't want revenge. I never did. I only wanted honesty." Emily nodded through tears. "I'm sorry." "I know, but sorry can't erase trust." "No, it can't." Before leaving, Ryan quietly packed a small overnight bag. He kissed Sophie. He hugged Ethan. Then he looked at Emily one last time. "I'm staying somewhere else for a while." She didn't argue. She knew she had no right to. As the front door closed behind him, the house became silent again. Not the peaceful silence I used to know. The heavy silence that comes after truth finally enters a room. Sometimes truth destroys lies. Sometimes it also breaks hearts. The weeks that followed were some of the quietest of my life. Not peaceful, just quiet. Ryan moved into a small furnished apartment across town. He told Sophie and Ethan that he and their mother needed some time to work through adult problems. He never spoke badly about Emily in front of them. For that, I admired him even more. Children should never carry the weight of their parents' mistakes. I continued seeing my grandchildren every Saturday. Sometimes Ryan brought them. Sometimes Emily did. The first few weeks they never arrived together. It broke my heart every time. One Saturday afternoon, Sophie sat beside me on the porch swing. "Grandma." "Yes, sweetheart." "Did Mom and Dad stop loving each other?" Children ask the hardest questions. I brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "No. They're trying to figure some things out. Like grown-up homework." I smiled sadly. "Something like that?" She nodded as though that explanation made perfect sense. Then she leaned against my shoulder. "I just want everyone happy again." "So do I." Those simple words stayed with me for days. Meanwhile, I met with Mr. Hamilton one last time. We reviewed every legal document I owned, every account, every beneficiary, every deed. Nothing had been changed. Nothing had been transferred. Nothing had been signed. The damage had been emotional, not financial. For that, I thanked God every day. Mr. Hamilton suggested several updates anyway. Not because anyone had stolen from me, because clearer protections would prevent future misunderstandings. I agreed. We appointed an independent executor, updated emergency contacts, strengthened powers of attorney. Everything became transparent. No secrets, no confusion. When I left his office, I felt lighter than I had in months. For the first time since Daniel died, I no longer worried about what might happen after I was gone. Several weeks later, Ryan invited me to lunch. He looked healthier, still sad, but stronger. "How are you sleeping?" I asked. "Better." "How are the kids?" "They're okay." He hesitated. "Emily's in counseling." That surprised me. "Really?" "She started the week after everything happened." I nodded quietly. "I think she finally realized how far she'd gone." I didn't respond. Ryan continued. "I've been going too." "You have?" I needed to understand why I ignored so many warning signs. I reached across the table. "This wasn't your fault." "No. But I wasn't paying attention. I trusted too easily." I smiled gently. "So did I." For the first time in weeks, we both laughed. It felt strange, but good. One afternoon in early spring, someone knocked on my front door. I already knew who it was before opening it. Emily. She stood on the porch, holding nothing. No casserole, no flowers, no gifts, just herself. Her eyes were tired. She looked thinner than I remembered. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. We sat in the living room where everything had begun months earlier. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "I've rehearsed this conversation 100 times. I still don't know the right words." "You don't need perfect words. You only need honest ones." She nodded slowly. "I betrayed your trust." "Yes. I convinced myself I was protecting my family." "You did." "But I wasn't. I was trying to control the future." Tears filled her eyes. "I thought if I could organize everything, I could solve everyone's problems. I forgot one thing." "What?" "They weren't my decisions to make." I listened quietly. No excuses. No blaming Ryan. No blaming debt. Only responsibility. She continued. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect trust. I just needed you to know I'm ashamed of what I became." For a long time, I looked at the woman sitting across from me. The woman who had baked birthday cakes, helped decorate Christmas trees, read bedtime stories to Sophie and Ethan. The same woman who had whispered, "She'll never know." Both versions were real. That was the hardest part. Finally, I spoke. "I forgive you." She looked up in disbelief. "You do?" "I forgive you because I don't want to spend the rest of my life carrying bitterness." Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "But," I continued, "forgiveness isn't the same as trust?" She nodded immediately. "I know. I don't expect things to go back. They won't, and they shouldn't. I understand." For the first time since this all began, we spoke honestly, not as enemies, not as family pretending nothing happened. Simply as two women who had learned painful lessons. Before leaving, Emily stopped at the front door. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me the chance to apologize." I smiled softly. "Thank you." "For finally telling the truth." After she left, I stood at the living room window watching her drive away. I realized something Daniel had once told me many years earlier. Trust is built in drops, but lost in buckets. He was right. Some buckets never refill completely, but that doesn't mean life ends there. Sometimes, it simply begins differently. A few days later, Ryan called. Mom. Yes, Emily and I aren't making any big decisions yet. I understand. But we're learning how to speak honestly again. I smiled. That's a good place to start. It is. Before hanging up, he said something that nearly made me cry. You didn't save your money. You saved me. I looked at Daniel's photograph sitting on the bookshelf. Maybe that was true. But it wasn't because I had been brave. It was because one forgotten phone recording had refused to stay silent. And because for once in my life, I had listened. Nearly a year has passed since the afternoon I accidentally left my phone recording inside the pocket of my cardigan. Sometimes I still think about how easily that recording could have been deleted. One careless tap. One empty trash folder. And I might have spent the rest of my life believing everything was exactly as it seemed. Instead, 4 whispered words changed everything. She'll never know. Ironically, I ended up knowing more than anyone expected. These days, my life is much quieter. Not because my family disappeared, because we've finally stopped pretending. Ryan eventually moved back home. Not immediately. It took months. Counseling, long conversations, painful honesty. Emily had to earn every small step forward, not through promises, through actions. One afternoon, Ryan invited me to dinner. This time, I noticed something different before I even walked inside. Laughter. Real laughter. Not forced. Not polite. Sophie opened the front door. Grandma! She hugged me so tightly I almost dropped the apple pie I was carrying. Ethan ran into the hallway behind her. I grew 2 inches. You certainly did. Ryan appeared next. He looked healthier than I had seen him in a very long time. Then Emily walked into the kitchen. She didn't rush to hug me. She didn't pretend everything had been forgotten. Instead, she smiled gently. I'm glad you're here. So am I. That was enough. Trust no longer lived in grand gestures. It lived in small, honest moments. Dinner felt different from the birthday dinner almost a year earlier. Nobody whispered. Nobody disappeared into another room. Nobody hid conversations. When Ryan discussed finances, everyone heard them. When legal paperwork came up, Emily actually laughed. I never want to see another estate form as long as I live. We all smiled. Humor had finally found its way back into the house. After dinner, Ryan asked if we could sit together for a few minutes. The children went upstairs. Emily remained beside him. Ryan cleared his throat. Mom, I've been thinking a lot about Dad. So have I. I finally understand something he used to tell me. What? He always said, money should never become more important than people. I smiled. That sounds exactly like Daniel. Ryan nodded. I forgot that. Emily quietly added, so did I. No one argued. No one defended themselves. Those simple words carried more honesty than an hour of explanations ever could. A week later, I met with Mr. Hamilton one final time. This wasn't because I feared my family anymore. It was because I wanted complete clarity. I updated my estate plan one last time. Not to punish anyone. Not to reward anyone. Simply to reflect my own wishes. Every beneficiary understood what I intended. Every document was explained. Every signature was completed with independent legal advice. No secrets. No surprises. When I walked out of the office, I felt something I hadn't felt since Daniel was alive. Peace. Real peace. Margaret noticed it almost immediately. You look lighter. I feel lighter. So, everything worked out? I smiled. Not perfectly. But honestly. She laughed. I'll take honest over perfect any day. So will I. Sometimes people ask me what the greatest inheritance Daniel left behind really was. It wasn't our house. It wasn't our retirement savings. It wasn't even the little nest egg we spent decades building. It was something much harder to create. Integrity. Daniel believed that how you treated people mattered more than what you owned. For a little while, our family forgot that lesson. Thankfully, we remembered it before it was too late. Do I trust Emily the way I once did? No, probably never again. Some things cannot be rebuilt exactly as they were, but trust has returned in another form. Not blind trust. Earned trust. And strangely enough, that kind feels stronger. Ryan calls me every Sunday morning now, not because he worries I'm lonely, because we've learned never to assume tomorrow is guaranteed. Sophie still loves mystery novels. She recently told me she wants to become a lawyer someday. I smiled when she said that. Maybe she'll spend her life helping families avoid the mistakes ours almost made. Ethan still asks impossible questions. Last week, he looked at me very seriously and asked, "Grandma, if your phone hadn't recorded that day, what would have happened?" Children have remarkable instincts. I thought about his question for a long time. Then I answered honestly, "I don't know. But I'm very thankful it did." That tiny accident reminded me of something important. Life doesn't always warn us with loud alarms. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it leaves clues so small we almost ignore them. Sometimes the truth arrives inside an ordinary moment, waiting for us to pay attention. If there's one thing I hope my story leaves behind, it isn't fear. I don't want anyone to stop trusting the people they love. I simply hope they remember that love and honesty should always walk together. Love without honesty eventually becomes fragile. Honesty without kindness becomes cruel. Families need both. Looking back now, I no longer believe that accidental recording destroyed my family. It exposed the cracks before the entire foundation collapsed. It gave us one painful chance to rebuild, and we took it. Not perfectly, but truthfully. If Daniel were sitting beside me today, I think he'd smile that quiet smile of his and say exactly what he always said after life's hardest days. "We'll be all right." This time, I finally believe him. When I look back on everything that happened, I don't think the biggest lesson was about money or legal documents. It was about trust. Trust is one of the most precious gifts we can give another person. We build it slowly through everyday kindness, shared meals, phone calls, and simple acts of love. But trust should never mean giving away our voice, our judgment, or our responsibility. Loving our family doesn't mean we should stop asking questions. In fact, the healthiest families are built on honesty, not silence. I also learned that forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, and it doesn't mean pretending the pain never existed. Sometimes, forgiveness simply means refusing to let bitterness control the rest of your life. You can forgive someone while still setting healthy boundaries. You can open your heart again without closing your eyes. If you're a parent or grandparent like me, please stay involved in your own financial and legal decisions. Read every document. Ask every question. Seek independent advice whenever something doesn't feel right. The people who truly love you will never be offended by your desire to understand. They will respect it. And if you've made mistakes, as Emily did, remember that taking responsibility is the first step toward healing. Real apologies aren't just words. They're followed by changed behavior, patience, and a willingness to rebuild trust, one small step at a time. Life has taught me that families are never perfect. They never will be. But when honesty becomes more important than pride and love becomes stronger than fear, even broken relationships can begin to heal. I still miss Daniel every single day. But I know he would be proud that in the end, our family chose truth over comfort. Sometimes that's the greatest legacy we can leave behind. If my story meant something to you today, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you had discovered that recording? Would you have confronted your family immediately, or would you have quietly searched for the truth first? Please share your answer in the comments, and don't forget to tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. I truly enjoy reading every message and seeing how this little community brings people together from all over. If you enjoyed this story and would like to hear more heartfelt family dramas like this one, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach more people, and I'd love to have you join me again for the next one. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Until next time, take care of yourself and never underestimate the quiet power of truth.